I got a phone call from an elderly widow who was in the line of the pipeline, and we ended up talking for 2 hours, and she was telling me all the things that were happening to her, that this was the place that she had raised her children. This was the place that she had enjoyed a wonderful marriage with the man of her dreams, with the love of her life. This was her legacy, her land, her home, and she was basically told, you sign an easement or we're coming through with this pipeline no matter what. And so she's tearfully telling me this story, and my heart broke. And then there was an avalanche of calls. There were landowners, families, business owners, communities, and over they were saying the same thing. This pipeline is coming on our land. We have no ability to say no thank you. What can you do? What can you do to help? And yet the more and more I dove into it, I realized a few fundamental things. Number one, this was ushering in the Green New Deal into the state of South Dakota, a red, conservative, agricultural state. We are the stewards of the land. We are responsible for feeding people. And I see the Green New Deal as a pathway to starvation, a mechanism for controlling the land. And I just thought, I cannot believe our politicians are going along with this Green New Deal just to grab a little bit of cash. And the truth is that George Washington said, freedom and private property rights go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And that's the fight here in South Dakota. The fight is to control the land under your feet. And South Dakota is a beacon of hope for so many places. It's a beacon of freedom. We're an independent people. If we don't have our stand now, if we don't turn this narrative around, if we don't hold these politicians accountable, I'm fearful for what's ahead, and I think every state in the nation needs to be paying attention to what's happening right here in this beautiful state of South Dakota. Is there anything good about a carbon sequestration pipeline that would kill people in miles around if there was a rupture, that permanently sequesters plant food, which is the fundamental building block for life? Is there anything good about ushering in a Green New Deal to pay people using our taxpayer dollars to produce nothing? No, there's nothing good about this carbon pipeline except it will line the pockets of a very few elite number of people who are trying to convince the people of South Dakota and the surrounding states that this is good for them and they're going to take that pipeline on their land no matter what. So I have spoke before the United Nations before. It was the summit was called the Future of Food and Technology. Every single program or speaker on that platform was about plant-based was the future, lab meats was the future, and they invited one little old rancher to speak. I almost turned it down because I knew it would be a hostile environment, and yet I thought if I don't go speak to the United Nations, then who else is going to tell our story? And the story that the United Nations doesn't know, the story that the WEF doesn't know or they deny, the story that all these globalists who are convinced that they need to control the land and control the food, and it's the reason that the American cattle rancher is under attack is because we are a beacon of freedom. And what we do on the land is protect that natural habitat. We upcycle using those cattle. We produce the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. Those cattle aerate the soil with their hooves. They naturally fertilize it with their manure. Cattle protect the land because they keep that cover on the soil. But I also thought, man, how would this South Dakota prairie look different if a carbon pipeline was allowed just to barrel on through it? How devastating that would be. So this is really a cry, a plea to people. If you care about the land, if you care about community, if you care about your neighbors, this is something we can't allow and can't stand for. And that's why I'm so proud to stand up for this grassroots movement, to lock arms with people who truly understand the Constitution, who truly understand and respect the land, who truly care and love their neighbor and are not going to sell them down the river just to make a few extra bucks on a bushel of corn. This is good people in South Dakota. This is gritty, hardworking, caring, loving people in South Dakota. And I think the future looks bright. And the reason I think the future looks bright is because this carbon pipeline has underestimated the people of South Dakota. And we're not going to go down without a fight.